what were their marks, etc. So all these things need to be saved inside the database, right? So we need some server side language, some technology. So there we can, okay, we are not only limited to PHP. We have various other server side languages also like Java, J2E, .NET, ASP.NET, right? Python. So at the client side, we can use HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Server side, we can use PHP. But then we need to save the data, right? Data can be saved in files, but it is not easy to fetch the data from the files. And even if it is easy, it is not efficient. You will not have that optimized performance from the files. So we can use the database. So database. Today we will talk about the database that is MySQL. Right? So we have a very good stack in PHP which is very popular called as LAMP stack. LAMP stack. And we say LAMP stack if someone is asking you like what is stack you are working on, and if you are working on the PHP, probably you are going to say LAMP stack. So LAMP stack is Linux, Apache, then MySQL and PHP. So there are various other stacks. You will hear about LAMP. Some people will talk about MERN, that where we have the Mongo, Express, React, and Node.js. That is basically for the full stack. Then we have tall stack where we are talking about the tailwind CSS, right? So there are various stacks working. So we are going to talk about the LAMP stack, Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP, among which we are going to work on the PHP and MySQL today use for the Laravel. So now PHP is language. We are going to write our web application using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then I'll put the dynamic nature for that using the PHP and database. Now the problem is when I'm going to use PHP, right, few years back, like if I go 10, 15 years back, when it was like initial days of PHP, there weren't any frameworks. At that time, I had to write all the code by myself, right? I had to write all the code by myself. I have to uh, write some endpoints and I have to write some logic to like get the data and save it inside the database, make the database connections, and a lot of the stuff comes. So at that time, like the work was slow, right? The development was slow because you are going to write everything from scratch. So in this case, various frameworks started coming up. So the work of framework is that it gives you a skeleton, it gives you a base that, okay, because everyone is going to write web application, everyone is going to make the database connectivity, then why should we keep it separate? Why should we ask users? Why should we ask developers to write the database connectivity? It will be always required, right? So let's put it inside some framework and give it to developers that, okay, developers, now you don't have to worry about the database connectivity. Now you don't have to manage the database connections. It is very simple. You download our framework, start writing your code, and don't bother about the database connectivity. So one thing which was required by all members was added into a new framework and then was given to all of you. Right, let's understand it with one example. So suppose we are in, let's say, early 2000, okay, and now there are a lot of developers around the world and they are trying to make up their websites, web applications. So everyone is going to use MySQL or let's say Postgres or XYZ databases. So in that case, so I say developer one, so he writes the DB connection with MySQL. So I have a developer 2 who is writing the DB connection with, let's call it SQL server, right? So PHP plus DB connection with MySQL. Now, similarly, think there can be hundreds of developers around the world. So they are going to write up DB connection with MySQL. Another ones are writing the DB connection with SQL server. So someone came up with an idea that why everyone is writing the database connectivity itself. when everyone actually needs it. And everyone actually needs it. When everyone actually needs it, why not you give it to us? Why not PHP saying that, okay, you install this particular extension and it will give you the database connectivity without writing a single line of code. It will not only give you database connectivity, but more advanced feature. So someone came up with this idea that why everyone is writing the database connectivity himself when everyone actually needs it. Why not include it? Why not include it? So yes, we can include it. So the idea came up with the example of framework. Framework. So this gave the idea of framework, that why should we work on those features which everyone is needed. Everyone needs that feature. So let's work on the framework and come up with some small solution which can help you in doing like less coding, which is always required. If you are going to write 10 projects, all the projects will require the database connectivity, right? So they said that, okay, let's go for framework. So framework came up with the idea that, okay, let's bring up the DB, database management, database management part. Framework came up with the idea of database management, that, okay, I don't have to now go and write up a lot of database connectivity code. I don't have to manage the records, right? I don't have to manage the records. I don't have to go and manage up, let's say, the routing part. Now, in case if anyone is not aware of like routing works, routing is basically the endpoints which you add inside your URL. So, for example, if you see on my browser, there is a URL open, teams.microsoft.com, and after that, this part which I'm highlighting is actually a endpoint, right? Route. So this route contains the information that where, what page you want to call from the web application, right? And what is the information, like how you are a unique user. How will I know that you want so and so specific page? So all that information is inside this route. We will understand about this in Laravel practically. Okay. So these kind of things were added into the framework. Right. So once you added it inside the framework, developer life became easy. And everyone said, okay, now this is good because I need the power of PHP and I want to do lesser work. I'll go with this framework. Right. I'll go with this framework. Second thing is, when you are writing the database code, when you are writing up some queries to fetch the database code, they need to be secure. If they are not secure, chances are your application can be accessed in the unauthorized way, right? It can be hacked. So if it is hacked, obviously it's like a the data will be breached, right? So company can go into the loss. So data, when you are accessing the database, you have to write the query so that no one can go and put a SQL injection. So here the frameworks are very helpful because they do a lot of testing, right? They do a lot of testing before launching their frameworks and they give it to you. So you do not have to bother about it. That, okay, because I am writing my code, I can test it to some extent, but when a community has written that framework and a big number of developers have used it, so it is like a proven thing. It is tested thing. Okay, and the one important thing is efficient, right? Efficient and optimized. Whenever you are using a framework, it would be efficient and optimized. It would be giving you a solution which is efficient. It would be writing up the database accessibility in a way that it makes it faster also. Right? Sometimes if you are going to a bank and let's say you want to deposit some money, bank people sometimes say that, okay, our system is down, our system is very slow, it is taking time, right? Or you call a customer support that, okay, I'm unable to transfer some funds from my account to other account, or it was actually taking up time and went time out. So all these things are related to database. When your database is slow, right? When your database is slow, actually your application is also going to be slow. If your application is going to take time to fetch the data from the database, then understand that you need an optimized solution. So here frameworks solve that thing again. framework are bringing the database connectivity in such a way that it provides you an efficient solution, optimized solution. It takes lesser time than writing up like big queries. Okay, now we are talking about Laravel, but Laravel is not only one framework, right? Laravel is not only one framework. If I talk about the PHP framework, so we have, I'll say Cake PHP, a very old framework, which is still like in action. So Cake PHP is there. Then we have Code Igniter, and we have Ye framework. So these are PHP frameworks. And then came the boss, Laravel. Laravel is so popular that you can consider that Cake PHP, Code Igniter, and Ye framework. If I compare the total number of downloads of these frameworks and I compare it with the Laravel download, so all the frameworks are at one side. Laravel is alone at one side, the boss. So you can say Laravel is the boss of frameworks right now. It is so popular and uh, big community is handling up the Laravel, right? I'll show you. Let's search for Laravel and I'll go to GitHub. Now, if anyone is not aware of GitHub, don't worry, we are not going to work anything on GitHub right now. So we are talking only about the GitHub in a sense that we can host the code here, right? We can host the code here. We can host our repositories here. Just 1 second. Close this. I'll go to different window here. Right. So GitHub is a repository, a platform where you share your code with your team, right? So let's open up this link, GitHub Laravel. What exactly is this? This is called as open source, right? This is open source. If you see, the source code of Laravel is actually hosted publicly, right? It is hosted publicly, and a big number of community. So here you can see the contributors, 634. So 634 contributors have been contributing to this Laravel, right? And the founder is this guy, Taylor Otwell. So this guy is the founder of Laravel. And now some more members are added to this Laravel team. So we call them as the core team of Laravel core team, right? So this Mr. Taylor has created this Laravel, and it is so efficient that you can see a big number of developers are working on it. Just check how many forks are being there, how many people are watching it, how many people have uh, starred it, right? And you can see the release history. So it is being maintained. It is being maintained. If you see the initial versions, it started from Laravel 1, 2, then came 3, 4, 5, and 5 was like a big work. 5, 5.1 till it is 6, then 7, 8. Now every 6 months they are releasing up a new version, right? Recently they have released version 10. It is like 5 or 6 days back. So we will talk about Laravel 8 and 9 in this webinar. Okay, so you can see they are very active. You see the latest commit. It is just now. Someone has just updated this now. Update example. So someone has just updated. So even Taylor, like when we were talking about these things, Taylor has just updated something in the env example. Now what he has updated is not the matter right now. We are just talking about like, it is very active. This uh, framework is very active in the development. Okay, now how can we use Laravel, right? How can we use Laravel and how it is going to benefit us? I'll show you these things practically. So first thing is we need to create a project with Laravel, right? First thing is I need to download all this stuff and put it inside the Laravel. Okay. And most important thing, Laravel is going to come with lots of dependencies, right? Try to understand the word dependencies. That Laravel is going to give its own features, but it is also using some other dependencies, right? For example, as we discussed over here, database management, right? Here, framework is providing you a database management. So for database management, Laravel is using a object. We call it as ORM. ORM, we will use a object record management, right? Where it is going to manage the PHP objects with a database record. PHP object with a database record. If anyone is not aware of object, I'll again tell. PHP is also a object-oriented language. You can create classes and you can create the object of those classes. So when I say one object of PHP, it is equivalent to one record of the database, right? So here Laravel is going to create that object and then save it inside the database. So this transforming of the data to the database is used with a ORM, right? And that ORM is using an ORM called Eloquent, right? So Laravel is using the ORM library called Eloquent. There are various other dependencies which actually it is using. So you need to create this project, right? You need to create this project on your system, and then you have to manage all those dependencies. So now there are hundreds of dependencies, right? Hundreds of dependencies. So how are you going to manage it? Do we need to download everything? Do we need to download everything and then uh, like keep it at a right place in my system? So answer is no. You don't have to download everything. You need someone which can do this work for you, right? You need someone who can do all this work for you. So how are you going to do it? So let's understand what are the prerequisites for this. Prerequisites for this. So first thing, I need a code editor where I can write my code. So I'm going to use VS Code. VS Code. I believe everyone who has joined has some interest in programming or has done some programming would be aware of VS Code, right? We are aware of VS Code. VS Code is very powerful, lightweight text editor. It gives you a lot of extensions. We can use those extensions to be quick and efficient developers. Nice. So we need a code editor. Now, second thing, we need the PHP environment, right? We need the PHP environment to run the PHP code. Okay, so if you are writing up a PHP code, you actually need the PHP environment to run that code. So we will install PHP, and I have PHP 8.0 on my system. Right, basically I work on PHP 8.1, and in case if this gives any problem with Laravel, we will quickly upgrade it as well. We'll remove this PHP version, we'll install the latest version, PHP 8.1 or 8.2. Okay. And next, we need a database, MySQL. So we'll have a database on our system, MySQL. You can use MySQL, you can use MongoDB, you can use Postgres, and a lot of things, right? So Laravel is going to support multiple databases. As I said, it is actually given to you to handle up all those database queries, and not only database stuff, a lot of other stuff. But you will see that you don't have to be a super developer of MySQL to write up the database stuff or super developer of Postgres to write up the database queries. Laravel is actually going to be handling for it, right? So Laravel is going to be your friend to send the data into the databases very easily. I'll show you. Okay, next. So we need a code editor, we need the PHP MySQL, and we need the PHP and MySQL, and then we need the dependency manager, very important. dependency manager. Okay, we need the dependency manager. So we are looking for a manager who is going to work for you, right? And what would be his work? His work would be to manage the dependencies, right? So suppose I'm installing Laravel, let's say 8, and I have PHP 8, 8.0. I'll call it as 8.0, and then I need that it should use all the packages which Laravel 8 and PHP 8 is supporting. Another developer is using, let's say, Laravel, or you have a different project, so in which you are using Laravel, let's say 8.1, 8 again, but you have the environment PHP 8.1, or let's call it as 9. Sorry. So one project is there where you are using Laravel 8 and PHP 8. Another project is Laravel 9 and PHP 8.1. So in this case, the dependencies, the packages that they want to use, the database library that they would be using, the mails library they would be using, all those would be different. Now here you will require this dependency manager, right? And the dependency manager that we would be using is Composer. 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 Now we have to use this Composer to download these dependencies. Right, we are going to use the dependency manager Composer. So I'll write Composer PHP download. Composer PHP download. So you can go to this website, you can download Composer as per your environment. If you are on Linux, basically I'm on Ubuntu, so I'm going to run these commands. Right, so it will actually first copy the installer from this location to your local directory. We'll check the file, will run the Composer setup, and then it is actually removing it. But let's say if you are on Windows, let's see if we have any installation here. Okay, dependency management, system requirement, installation for Linux, and installation for Windows. So if you are on Windows, it's very simple. You can download the composer setup.exe and you can go and install it. Just double click it, it will install it. If anyone is aware of Docker, you can run the Docker image, but we'll not talk about Docker. Very less time, right? And a lot of things are there to talk in Laravel itself. So dependency manager, we are going to use the Composer. I have installed it on my system. So once you install it, you can go and run a command Composer just to check if Composer is working on your system. Cool, it's working. Okay, you can see a Composer logo over here, the version, and then a lot of like options it will be showing. Let me clear my screen. So we are good with this now. So Composer is also installed on my system. We'll quickly check PHP -v. The version is there. Then Composer version is there. So I am good with this. So give me a second. Let me open up my SQL Workbench and quickly check for the database. Right. Okay. So we have the database also here. I'll close other tabs. A lot of databases. These are basically from my trainings. I'll create one schema. So I'll call it as like Feb month and webinar. So I'll create this schema database. Okay, and here actually it is. So this database is not containing any tables for now. No problem. We'll create these tables and let's minimize this. So we are having everything. The prerequisite is complete. We have a code editor. We have the PHP installed. We have Composer. We have the database as well. So now how to create our project, right? How to create our project. So for this, we will go and create a new folder. Let's go to CD trainings. So this is a folder where I keep all my trainings and stuff. So whenever you are working as a developer, right, in case if anyone is newbie and is going to start work as a web developer, so always try to keep your file system arranged, right? So if you are working in a company, keep your projects in one place, your personal data at one another place. So here I have a folder trainings in which I keep all my trainings data, and I'll make a new folder here. Let me zoom this in case if it is not visible to anyone. Okay, so mkdir is the command from terminal to make a folder. You can go and create it from here as well. You can just simply click right click new folder and mkdir. I'll make it like web-web, right? So this is, I have created a folder. We'll go to this folder, web. Is there anything in the folder? No. So now I have to set up my Laravel project. The first thing you are going to take away is how to set up your Laravel project. Now you have seen this in the browser. Check it here. If anyone is not aware of GitHub, how do you think you are going to download this project? One option is you click here, you download. Not an efficient way. Don't do this. Don't download the zip and keep it as a project, because if you downloaded, let's say, some other branches like master branch, which is not actually a stable code or not a released version, so that is not a good way. So we are going to use this composer to set up this project. Right. So if you have a paper pen with you, please note down these things or take a screenshot at least of the screen, how we are going to set up the project, right? So we will start with the composer command. We will use the option to create a project, composer, create hyphen project. And then I'm going to write Laravel / Laravel. Okay. And we have to give a name for this. We have to give a name for this project. So I'm going to give it the name as web app. Okay, so composer, create project, Laravel web app. Now remember, you have not mentioned that what version, what release you have to use. If you go back to this GitHub, you see there are a lot of releases of this project. Right, releases, like it is publicly available to the developers community. You can use it. So whenever we are talking about the releases, setting up a new project, always use a release and always try to use the latest release, right? I'm not going to talk about 10 because it was released just like 1 week back and we have not yet gone through much about it. So I don't want to break anything in the webinar, and let's try to run this. Okay. So what actually it is downloading? It is downloading 9. Even I have not mentioned the version. So it should have downloaded the latest one, 10, but it will not, because the version 10 actually needs minimum 8.1. Minimum 8.1. Minimum 8.1 of what? Minimum 8.1 of PHP. So if you had PHP 8.1 on your system, this command would have downloaded the Laravel 10. Right now you see composer is so beautifully fetching up the project. It is downloading that repository and then installing it on your system, creating up some stuff, right? And then it is checking the dependencies. All these dependencies are required when you are running the Laravel, when you are working on Laravel, right? Now there were in total, just check how many installs, 110. So 110 different sources were downloaded and kept inside your project. Now think of that, how complex it was going to be if you were not having the composer. So if Laravel is beautiful, remember composer is also good. Composer is helping you to manage your dependencies, right? Composer is helping you to manage your dependencies. So after installing all the dependencies, it has checked what are the packages which are to be used, and then it is doing some work, publishing some stuff, creating up a key. Right, we'll talk about like why this key is required. So all this stuff is done. All this stuff is done. And now let's see what is the structure of the files we have created. So we'll go to the web app, and here you see so many number of files and folders have been created. Let's try to open this in our project in the VS Code. Okay, so I'll go for code. Okay, and I'll do one more thing. I'll just copy this. And there is a README file, which actually is going to bring up a lot of README about Laravel, right? But what I'll do, I'll just remove everything. We don't need this. We'll save our stuff, what we are discussing today, in this file, readme.md. Okay, I'll close the another VS Code. Don't save this. Perfect. So everyone, I believe, is clear with how to install Laravel, how to install Laravel or create project, create Laravel project. I'll quickly write the command for you. So I'll go for composer, create hyphen project, Laravel / Laravel project. Everyone is good with how to create Laravel project. So you see, so many number of files and folders are being created: app, bootstrap, config, database, lang, public resources, route, storage, test, and vendor. Now this vendor was actually not available inside the GitHub. If you go back, go to the Laravel repository, you see there is no vendor folder here. So where this vendor folder has generated? Why this vendor folder is generated? Anyone can type this quick question. Why this vendor folder has generated on our system and it is not available on the Git? Anyone can quick type the answer. Why I don't see the vendor folder on Git while it is available on our system? I'll tell the answer. See, vendor folder can depend on your environment, right? If you remember last time here we discussed that if a developer one is using PHP, okay, I think I have removed it. Right. Suppose if someone is using PHP 8, someone is using PHP 8.1. So for them, the vendor library can be different, right? A different version of, let's say, Doctrine can be for 8.0 and for 8.1. So for this reason, vendor folder is not pushed to GitHub. Right? Vendor folder is not pushed to GitHub. If you are using an existing project, so it will pick up the dependencies from this composer.json. Right. So that composer is going to read this composer.json and actually install all these libraries. Right. And here, everything which is written over here, these are the packages: Guzzle HTTP, Laravel Framework, Laravel Sanctum, Laravel Tinker, and all these projects are going to come with their own dependencies, right? So suppose if I go to this Guzzle HTTP vendor, we'll find the Guzzle. I'll need to go for Guzzle HTTP. Then here you see Guzzle. Go on to this Guzzle and see it will also contain a composer.json. So your core project is containing a composer.json for library, right? And all those libraries are further having some dependencies. So here this composer.json is it is looking for ext.json, extension JSON, then promises, PSR7, HTTP client, Symfony deprecation contract. So if these are not installed, Composer is going to install this also in your vendor folder. Okay, it is going to install these all dependencies also in the vendor folder. Okay. So everyone is good with how to set up the project. Give me a quick yes, no. How to set up the project. Our project is created. Project is created. Now we will configure this. Right. First thing, give me a quick yes, no. Everyone is clear with Composer and how to create a project. We'll go step by step. Composer and create project is good. Only one member, Eric. What about others? Give me a quick yes, no. Everyone. Great. Guys, if you member are going to be quick, I'll have more time. If you will take time for replying to yes or no, obviously then we are wasting time. Save the time. Give me a quick yes, no, quickly. Make it interactive session. The more you respond, more I'll be charged up. Cool, good, great, great. Okay, so my Laravel project is created. Now I want to configure it to handle the database stuff, right? I want to configure it for handling the database stuff. So if you look at this project, I mentioned that there are various folders. We'll come back to these folders, but we will look for this env file, .env, right? This .env is actually called as environment file. Right now, suppose if your manager is saying or your co-developer is saying that please update this key in the environment file. Okay, so now don't get confused. Like, where is the environment file? I don't see a file named as environment. Right, it is actually the .env file. .env file. So this .env file will contain the configurations which can vary from system to system. Right. Now, everyone is aware that there are three different systems. One is your local, different systems in development process. Right. First one is local. So whenever you are working on a project, obviously you are going to set it up on your local system. Right. Suppose there is a client who gave me a project. So I have to set up that project on my local system. I cannot go and work directly on his production server. If there is a small, very small mistake, if I miss a semicolon, might be his whole application is going to crash. Right. No users can access it. So there is always a chance of error. So we don't work directly on the production. We will set up that project on local. So once you set up on that project on local, then you are going to do the work, you are going to send the feature, you are going to push it for the testing. So we will have a QA server for testing. Some people call it as QA. There are different like terms, QA, staging, alpha, beta, right? So they have different servers, QA, staging, or dev environment. So now we have these cellular. Local is on your local system. QA staging dev is a server where the where you can push your changes, you can check how it is actually working in the real time, or the developers, sorry, the testers, the QA team, right? The testing team can check it and verify it whether the features are working or not. Then next one would be once everything is good, we push that thing to the production prod. So there would be minimum three environment at any place. One on your local system, second one the QA, the third one is production. So where are you going to work first? You're going to work on your local. Right. So when you're going to work on your local, you will put the information of your local system into the environment. Different environment systems. So when I'm going to work on local, I'll use a database from my local system, isn't it? You are not going to use the QA database. You are not going to use the production database. Your local system, like when we are going to do this project, the one we have just created, I have mentioned that, okay, let me create a database. Now this database has nothing to do with the testing team or other developers because it is on my system, right? So we'll go to the environment file and here we have the key and the values which are going to handle the environment for this particular local environment, right? So app environment, app name, app env, app key, app debug, app URL. So we'll not discuss one by one each and every single environment key. It will take like 2-3 hours. What actually it is doing and how what is required. So all these things we are not going to discuss right now. Important ones we will discuss. So I have to make the database connectivity. So they have given you a database connection variable, a host variable, port variable. So you have to fill the information here. So I want to use a database connection related to MySQL, right? Because I'm using the database MySQL. The host is 127, that is the local, port is default. So database I have created fab-web, right? And then I need to check the root and the password. I need to check the root, username, and the password. So I think the password for this database is password only. So we have filled this information. Okay. Now, I don't have to go and write the database connectivity code. I don't have to go and write up the creation of the objects, nothing. I can simply fill up the information here and now it is all the data will be saved inside my database automatically. Right. How it will be saved automatically, we'll quickly check. But environment is ready. I am good with the database connectivity part. Right, environment is done. So all the changes you have to make for your local system is in .env. If there are senior members sitting over here who used to deploy the project onto, let's say, the servers using GitHub, ensure that you don't put any password in .env file. You don't push this to the, you don't push this file to the GitHub, right? You don't push this file to the GitHub. You simply update this for your local system when it is deployed on server. Then you go to the server, use a terminal SSH to update the username password for that particular server. So if it is QA, it will contain the information of the QA database, right? QA database name, QA database username, password, and all of that stuff. I hope everyone is clear with this. Next. So env is done, and now I want to create some tables, etc. Right? I want to save some data. Now, what actually we are going to build? We are going to build a very small, let's say, a blog project. Right? It will not be a complete project, but we'll try to touch base how to create the blog post, etc. Okay. So let's first of all think of the structure. So whenever we are going to make up a blog project, we need a users table, right? Users who are going to register, users who are going to create the post. So we need two tables at least, users and the post. Everyone is aware of blog, I believe. Blog is like you are going to write some topics and some description about those topics on routine. For example, a medium.com. Let's open this medium.com. Medium blog. Here it is. Medium. All right, people, everyone can register here and then write up something about what they are aware of. Suppose if I go for programming, so on programming here you can see they have written up a lot of blog posts. So here also we'll work in this way that you register, like you register on Medium, we'll create a registration point and then we will save some data into the database. Okay, let's go back to our project. Close this. Environment is good. README is fine. Okay, what next? I have not yet created any tables. Forget about tables. We have just set up the project. Let's see how it looks. How can I run this? Okay, so to run the project, how to run the project? Now, if I go to my terminal, I'll clear this. You are inside your project directory, right? You have to run a command php artisan. Okay. So artisan is a tool given inside the Laravel, right? Artisan is a program given inside the Laravel, and PHP is like you are calling the PHP environment. Okay. So PHP, I'm saying, okay, PHP run the artisan tool, and artisan tool is going to tell you how many commands are there. It will tell that, okay, artisan tool needs an option. Artisan tool needs a command. So all these green color you can see are commands actually. About, clear, compiled, completion, DB. Right. Suppose I want to know about the Laravel, right? What Laravel framework I'm working on. So you don't have to write this much. If you want to know about the project, so PHP artisan about, right? So now you see it's mentioning up that the environment is Laravel, Laravel version is this, PHP version is this, and all cache drivers, right? So I want to actually run the project. So I'll call a PHP artisan serve command. So serve command is going to use the server from PHP. Serve command is going to use the server from PHP 8, right? And serve this project. So I am running this project, PHP artisan serve. And it is actually running. See, server is running on this port number, 8000 port number and localhost. Let's open this in my browser. I hope everyone can see this. Your Laravel project is set up and it gives you a default page, right? It gives you a default page. You can edit this page. You can build a beautiful like home page, whatever you want to do. You can write CSS, everything. Okay, but this is the basic stuff we have done. I hope everyone is clear with this. how to run your project. So first thing, set up your project, update your database environment file, and then run your project. PHP artisan serve. How to run the project? PHP artisan serve. Remember, you have to run it from your project directory. I have seen people, they will create the project in, let's say, directory 1, and they forget that, okay, I created it in directory 1, and they will search around like everywhere, and they will try to run this PHP artisan serve in like third directory. So this is not actually going to work in that case. So you have to run the PHP artisan serve in the same directory on the terminal where you have kept the project. Everyone is clear? We have run the project. We have checked the base. I mean, base URL, what is actually running on the base URL, that was the, I can also call it using local host 8000. Anyone has any question up till this point? Very basic. We have created the project. We understood what are vendor libraries. We have understood what is the composer.json environment file, how to run the project. Give me a quick yes, no. Anyone has any questions? Everything is clear? Guys, yes, no, quick. Everyone, no response. What happened? It's just morning. Be energetic. All right. Mohammed says everything is good. No questions until now. Ajay Kumar, Raju, great. Even if anyone has any question, please feel free to ask. I'm giving time now. Cool. No questions. Great. I'll move further. Okay. Now we have created. Okay, great. So we'll come back now. You can pause the responses now and we'll ask again later. So we have just set up the project, and when I run the project, I see this beautiful page designed by Laravel, and I don't want to edit this right now, right? I don't want to edit this right now, but I want to add new pages. Suppose I want to write a page which should actually run when I'm doing a welcome/welcome. Okay, suppose I want to run this, I want to create a new page on welcome, or let's say I want to call it as register. Okay, or I want to call it as sign up. Everyone knows register or sign up means it will open a form. Okay, so quickly we'll understand how to create a form here. How to create a form. Sign up is saying 404. Everyone would be aware of 404. 404 means the resource which is requested is not available. So we are going to create one form now on this URL on sign up. Okay, on sign up, I'm going to create a form. So let's go and we will look for the route file. Okay, route file. And from the route file, I'll pick up web.php. Forget about this API channels console right now. Very less time. We will understand in a way that at least we can make one web route first. So here you see they have already given you a route using the get method, saying that if it is a base URL, then return a view welcome. Okay, so let's write our on route now. Route get. So here I'll say I want to do a sign up, and I'll write a function inside this way. So this is the structure, route get sign up function. Okay, so I'm going to return, let's say, a message. Hello, you can sign up. Okay, a very simple message. This is actually not signing up. This is not showing any form. I'm just returning up a message to check my route is working or not. This is called as the route endpoint. So you are calling the get. When we use get to fetch the data from the server. So I'm saying, okay, give me a page where I can sign up. Get sign up. I'm saying return, you can sign up. Save this file, go back to the browser and refresh this page. Okay, you can see your message is appearing now. No more 404. The reason, because now the route is available. Okay, route is available, so no more errors. It is actually showing what we have returned from here. Okay. I want to return a form. I want to return some HTML. Let's try to see if it returns a HTML. I'll use a strong tag. Let's do strong tag here also. Closing strong tag, save, refresh. It is bold now, right? It is a strong. Hello, you can sign up. So I am returning an HTML. Now, if I'm returning an HTML, that means I can return a form also. Let's try to see. So I'm going to create a form and create an input inside this input type text. Name equals to, let's call it as email. I'll put single quotations because you cannot put double quotations here and then double quotations here. It will actually terminate, complete the string. That will be an error. So between double quotations, always add the single one. So name here, I'll put it as email. So that's actually my input type text and input type name. So I'll give it, oops, this is also text. So name is name and we'll keep one password field. So I want to register a password. Okay, so the name is actually password. Name can be a user defined name. Okay, if returns as PHP file, fine. Remember, this is a framework, right? It runs on the MVC pattern. And once we complete up our basic demo, we'll understand what is MVC, model view controller, right? So you don't have to write this .php because in MVC, in the frameworks, you don't call a file with a physical path. All the paths are the related paths, right? Relative path. So relative path will, you cannot call it like web.php. So it will not return as .php file. If it is returning as .php file, so somewhere your server was not able to identify the PHP environment, right? Or the PHP environment was not enabled on your server. Sometimes you will face this issue when you are deploying the project on server and then you are running a route, it downloads the PHP file. Okay, so still display 404. Please check if it is displaying 404. You have not saved the web.php. If the web.php is saved, still you need to identify that this URL that you have written here and this URL should be same. Mohammed, you can copy this URL right from your system, paste it in the chat. We can quickly check. Okay, I'll come back this sign up. A form is ready and a button is required. So input type. One second. Yes, input type is equal to submit and value is equal to register. So I have created a form. I'll add a break tag also. Okay. Now if someone is saying like, can we use CSS? Yes, we can use CSS, but we are not here to learn CSS, right? So just the functional part of PHP. So form is ready. Let me refresh this. You can see a form field is being created. I'll zoom this. Okay. So let's give some name here, email, then name, and then password. Okay, refresh it. So email, name, and the password. Now you can see a form is being created, and the form is created inside your route file. Okay, not an efficient way, but just to understand that if I want to create an endpoint, I have to create it inside the route, and then I can return the data from here. Everyone is clear with this? If everyone is clear, please give me a yes, no. Perfect. So my route is working, but I need to run it in an efficient way. Right? If you're using Laravel, means you're using a big thing. Laravel is so good that you can make the enterprise applications with millions of requests. Right? With millions of requests. Even if a project is getting a millions of requests, we can handle it through Laravel. It is such a stable framework. Okay. Great. Okay. So now someone asked a question, if return as PHP file, right? That if I'm running this route, why it is not asking me a web.php file? How it is resolving this sign up? Remember, we are talking about MVC pattern. Laravel uses MVC. Okay, Laravel uses MVC pattern. MVC stands for model, V stands for view, and C stands for controller. Model, view, controller. Model, view, controller. Among this, one word would be very clear: view. Right? And view actually has a very simple meaning. View means to view, right? To view the data. So whenever you have to view the data, you will return a view. Whenever you have to view the data, you will return a view which will contain the data, which is actually a page which is displayed on your screen, right? If you see over here, this is my view. I am returning a view. What is happening at server, forget about it. Right now, this is view. Whatever you see on client is actually a view. Okay. Now, model and controller. Controller also tells its meaning itself. Controller, to control. So whenever I'm requesting something on the server, whenever I'm requesting to the server, controller will actually accept it. And controller will say that, okay, what do you need? Do you need data, or you are sending the data? Right. So if you're requesting for data, controller will fetch that data from the database. So how will it fetch the database? Through the model. Through the model. So what is the work of model? Read, write data from the database. Remember, I mentioned up here, it is using database management. It is using a ORM library. Here comes your model. So this model is going to read and write the data from the database. Got it? Model is going to read and write the data from the database. View is going to present the data. Used to present the data. Then we have the controller. What is controller going to do? Controller is going to handle the HTTP request. Okay. Controller is going to handle the HTTP request. It will send the request whenever your browser is making a request. Whenever your browser is making a request, right, it goes to the Laravel application. So there the controller would be handling it. And remember, MVC is independent of Laravel. Don't think that MVC is part of Laravel. Right? MVC is model view controller pattern and is being used by Laravel. Similarly, other technologies like .NET or Java also use MVC. Okay, so MVC is basically model view controller, how to read the data from the database, how to present it, how to handle that request is being done by MVC. Let's see the life cycle of a request, when how a request is being handled by MVC. I'll not go into very depth, right? It's a separate topic which needs hours, but I'll give you an introduction to it. So who are you? You are a client. Your browser is a client. Okay. Client makes a request. Client makes a request. Okay. And where is the request goes? The request goes to the backend server. Backend server. Okay. So client makes a request goes to the backend server. Now this line I have written line number 50. Remember, this is again not the part of Laravel. This is the structure. This is the structure. Client request backend server. Now what is going to happen at the backend server? What is going to happen at the backend server? So now if I talk about the backend server, right? Let's think of the backend server right now. So this backend server is divided into various layers, right? So first thing is you will get the request at the HTTP layer. HTTP layer. So someone should be there to accept it, right? For example, if you go to a hotel, right, the first thing you do is you go to the reception, right? If you want to check in into a hotel, you have to go to the reception. Even if you have booked it online, you directly don't go and stand before the door of your room, isn't it? Suppose I got a room number 504. So I will enter into the hotel. I'll check in at the reception first. So that is like an HTTP layer. So reception is the place where everyone coming from outside will be greeted, will be accepted, and will ask, how can I help you? Right? So they are trying to understand what do you want. So if I say, okay, I have a hotel booking, they will say, yes, sir, it is there. You can go to this is the keys, and they will direct me to the room number. And suppose if I am there for some query, I just want to know your tariff for the hotel for 1 day. They can say, okay, we charge this much amount. So I have done the query, I'll come back. Have I gone till room? No. Okay, so now see both the differences. I went there and I want to get into the room. So HTTP layer, the reception is going to redirect me to send me to the room. I came there, but I only wanted to know the tariff. So I asked the tariff, I got some data, I went back. So HTTP layer is not going to the room now. Okay, so here client request, the request will go to the HTTP layer, and this request HTTP layer is called as the controller. Remember, this is very effective when you go for your interview. They can ask you like, what is MVC? Can you explain it? We can talk for hours on this. So client request on the server, and this part is going on the server side. Remember, this part is going on the server side. So client makes a request goes to the HTTP layer, controller, right? Now, what is controller going to do? Controller is going to check that what actually you need. Are you giving me some data, or you are just requesting for some data? When I submit a form, that means I'm sending the data to the server, right? See, let's try to understand here. I'll open google.com. Remember, this is a form. The text field that you see over here is a form. A form does not need to be a like look and feel like a form. A text field is there, that means it is actually a form. So I'm going to submit some information here. Suppose I want to search about Laravel. Okay, I want to search about Laravel. So let's click on Google search. See the URL. URL is empty right now, isn't it? When I'm submitting Google search, a lot of information is created inside the URL. And here, if you see, a parameter is also created. Q is equal to Laravel, right? And it is searching Laravel information. So first I submitted some data that I want to know about Laravel, right? I want to know about Laravel. So that is like a query. A request has been sent, and now it is going to return me back with the information, right? So the controller would have received a request and checked that what you are trying to do. Okay, you are trying to call this particular thing, right? So it will, from there, it will fetch the data. It will fetch the data from the model, and then it is going to return. And what it is going to return the view. Return the view, right? So this is how MVC pattern is going to work. Client makes a request. The request will be received at the HTTP layer, and then model is going to work. And let's remove this. And if any data is required, model will send the data or fetch the data from the database. Now see, you are not directly interacting with the database. You are interacting with the HTTP layer only. Even HTTP layer is not going to the database directly. It is using model. All right. So this way you make a secure application. Your database is not exposed. Your database is not exposed at all. Right. But if I look at my project, the one I have created right now, I have not created any controller. Where is the controller? I have written everything inside the route file, and that's why I told at that time this is not an efficient way. Right. So we need to use the MVC. So instead of route, writing everything inside the route, I'll use a controller. If you go to this app, HTTP controllers, see this controller file. There is the app HTTP controllers. So go to this file, and here you can write a method public function sign up. Okay, public function sign up. And inside this, I'm going to return whatever I have returned over here. So let's paste it here. Still, this is not an efficient way, not a very good way. Right? People with experience will not love this thing, but I'll go step by step. Right. So we have cleaned the web file. Now see, it is cleaned. I'll change this. So instead of writing up your logic code here, you pushed it to the controller file. Okay. And here we will mention that information of the controller. I'm going to say the controller is actually inside the app HTTP and controllers. Right. So this is the controller, and I'll say that, okay, I want to call controller colon class, and the method name is sign up. So you are passing an array with the class name and the method name, right? And now save this. Save this file and run it. I'll refresh this now, and you get the same output. Output is same. We have not made any changes in the output. The only thing is we have cleaned up our route file. What is the purpose of reception? Just to handle the query that, okay, where should I go? So this HTTP layer route is only handling it up. Where should I send it? I should go send it to the controller file, to the sign up method. Okay, so it comes over here. Now suppose if your form was of like 200 lines, a form was of 200 fields, isn't it? It is going to be big. So what can we solve over here? How can we clean up our controller? I have to write a lot of PHP code. So in this case, I will move the UI, the form, into a view. So just check this now. Where should I go? I'll go to the resources, views folder. Right click, new file. I'll call it as signup.blade.php. So it is actually going to use a blade template, right? So I will just copy without double quotation, not required. Double quotations are not required anymore. I'm only going to use the form. Now see, we have kept the things at the right place. I have a view file, which is going to be a blade template. The information is set here. And now what should I do here? How will my route connect to that view? So route is saying, okay, if you are calling sign up, go to the controller. Fine. So we go to the controller. Controller is saying that, okay, I'll give you a view because you are asking for a view. There is a view function. You don't have to go and mention the physical path of this folder. That, okay, resources / views / sign up. That is the beauty of framework. You have to just mention up the view method. So once I write the view method, we are simply going to call it as name of the view. So when I write the name of the view, it will automatically understand that it has to look for the resources, views, and the sign up.play.php. Save this, refresh it. Can you see? Very simple. Email, name, password. Refresh. It is still, the output is same. We don't have any problem. Right? So your route is clean, your controller is clean, and here is your form. We can submit the data. So I have not yet specified where should this form be submitted. And I have not yet specified where should this form be submitted. But we will do that. We will specify where this form should be submitted, and we will save the data inside the database. Before that, Everyone give me a quick yes, no, that all are good with this. Everyone. I want answer from everyone. I want a reply from everyone attending this session. Everyone is good. Great. Great. Remember, your questions, your yes or no is going to make this session interactive. Lots of people are connected. So if you mention up yes, we also know that, okay, you are understanding, and we will be more energetic with the session. Thank you. Right. I want to create a blog, right? So I need a post also. I need a post also. So I'll create a form for that as well. So let's do a new folder, post. Okay. So I have created a new folder called as post. Now, why I created a new folder? Remember, I earlier also I mentioned your file system should be very good. That you keep the files, your file management should be good. So all the files, all the views related to the post will go over here. So I'll create a new file. I'll call it as create.blade.php and new file index.blade.php. I want to create the routes, everything. I'll quickly test it. So in the index, I'll mention a list of posts. I'm just writing a basic text. Create form to create a new post. Done. Close this. Close everything we have. Okay. So I have created a create file and an index file. I want to create a form for this. I'll write the form shortly. List of the post I'll write here. I want to see these things inside my browser. I want to see these things inside my browser, that when I'm going for the post, how it is actually going to work, right? So for this we are going to now create up the routes. So first we'll create the route colon get post. This is my get route. This will fetch all the list of the post. I'll call it as no, I don't need function, because I'm going to now use my controller colon class, and I'll say create list post. Fine. And also one important thing, always name your web routes. I'll show you the need shortly. So I'll give a name to it, and the name will be post dot index or post dot list. Any good name is fine, which you can remember, post dot list. Okay, there are various conventions, but we will read about it in actual trainings. So name post dot list, and I need another route which will create that, which will show the form. Okay, so that will be post slash create. Okay, so I'm writing up a route get method post slash create. When you are calling this route, I want to show the form for creating the post. So we'll add the controller class create post. Okay, let's give a name. As we said, that it should be good that you give the name. Right, I'll give the name over here, post dot create. So we have two endpoints created. Let's run these endpoints and see in the browser. But if I run these endpoints in the browser, it will give me error. I'll show you. Post create, go to the browser, you get a 404. The reason is here you have the endpoints. So the request would have come till here. And from here we are saying, okay, go to the controller list post. If I go to the controller list post method, I don't have that method, and that is the reason it got the 404 error. So I'll now write public function list post, right? And then I need to return the view. So return view. Now, where is the view? View is index, post index. So how are you going to write it? Whenever your view is inside a folder, write post folder at the folder name dot the view name. That will be list post. Second one will have the list create post. Let me check the method name I have given. Yes, create post. So create post, and I'm going to call the create view, right? So I'm returning the create view. Now let's go and run this. If everything is good, it will show the text. Okay, there is a small mistake here. Type form to create a new post. We'll put the form shortly. Don't worry. And next, I want to see the post. So list of the post. Okay. So we are making up the skeleton. Whatever is required to create a post, we are making up the skeleton for it, right? So everything is good up till here. What next? What should we do next? We should create a form, exactly, and we should submit the form, right? We should submit the form. So let's go and create the form quickly. First, I'll come to the sign up. We have the form, and let's start with now. Okay. Correct. I'll come to that. So I'll come to it. So when are we going to use the name of the route? Right here, you will see my very next topic is about the name. So I have created a sign up. Let's give it a name. I'll call it as name register. Okay, I'll create the name register. So now this register is actually going to fetch the form, right? It is actually going to fetch the form. Where should you use this name? Let's come to the file welcome.blade.php. I hope you remember the home page. We do normal zoom. I hope everyone is clear with this. So when I'm calling this base URL, it is actually showing me a welcome page, which is here. Right. And if you want to edit this page, you can simply edit it. I'll put HTML5 template. I'll call it as web app demo, and let's write up a login. Register. Now this register, I want to make it a link. Right. And everyone is aware of anchor tag hyperlinks. So href equals to now where should I move this register? If the register is being called, right? If the register is being called, I want to send him to the sign up page, right? So one option is if you write it like this, like you do in normal PHP. Let's try to see what happens here. href sign up. Okay, let's go back, refresh this. You get a page here where it is showing you a link register. If I click on this, it works, right? But let's suppose when you were giving a demo to the client, so client checked it and he said that, okay, this sign up, I want it to be like this, right? So now suppose you have mentioned of this sign up at like 10 places in your application. There were various pages where you gave the link to this sign up. So you have to go and update it everywhere, right? You have to go and update it everywhere. So now instead of updating it everywhere, the best option is use the blade directives, call a function route, pass the name of the route, and this will resolve your purpose. You don't have to build a route, a URL every time. So what what Laravel is going to do, it will look for the route name register, right? And will pick up the URL for it and dynamically keep it here. So let's go back. Register is my link. Click on it. See, sign up is appearing. Correct? So now client came back. After a few days, client came back and mentions that, oh, we got some issues. Google is not doing SEO for our website. So let's go back to the sign up. Assume that client wants to come back to the sign up. So do I need to go and change it over here? Answer is no. You can simply refresh your page and click on register. See, it's appearing as sign up. So this is the need of name. Name will be helpful when you are making web applications to call the routes inside your web application, right? Remember, you will not call it by name here. If you're calling it by name here, it will be a 404 because that is not actually an endpoint. Right? This is the name of the route. So it is for the use of Laravel internally to know what route will be called. Is this clear, everyone? So I think it is good. Yeah, great. What about others? Okay. Okay. So now the sign up is there. If I want to sign up, if I submit the data, how actually it will go into the database? Right? I need a table. Yes or no? I need a table. So let's look at the database. There are no tables. Refresh all. No tables at all. One option is I go and create a table. Right? One option is I go and create a table. But remember, in Laravel, you don't create the tables like this. You create it using migrations. Okay, you create it using the migration. So if I go to the database migrations, there are already some files to create a users table, password reset table, failed jobs, personal access token, right? So I look at the create users table. So it is saying there should be an incremental ID, there should be a name, there should be an email verified at, and a password field. Okay. Now the migrations are there, and the benefit of this migration is that it keeps a track. Whenever you are going to create something, your other developer can immediately go to the migrations and can see it. You don't have to tell your colleague that, okay, tell your team that, okay, I have created one column, please create it inside your database. No, you don't have to do that. You can simply create a file here, add a column, remove a column, and the other person can do the same thing in his system by just running one command, PHP artisan migrate, right? So suppose I have set up the project. Laravel gives you by default the user schema structure. So this comes by default. So now the database connection was good. It immediately run these 4 migrations, and you can see some tables would have been created. My bad, I clicked on new table. Refresh. I need to refresh. So you can see some tables are being created: users, personal access token, password reset, migrations. So here you can see the migrations. So it will keep a track that, okay, this migration has actually run, and it will not run it again. Even if by mistake, suppose my project is on server and by mistake I executed this command, no problem, because it will query up here. Only the migrations which are not available here in this migration table will be executing. So table is created for user. We still need one more table. So I'll create one migration for it. Okay, so let's go and create a new migration, PHP artisan make migration. Make migration, I'll call it as create table post. Hyphen create equals to post. Now see, PHP artisan make migration is the command to create a migration. It needs the name of the file which you want to create and what you want to do. I want to create a new table. Table name should be post. Enter. It will create a new file. Can you see this? The whole structure is being created. Now you can simply add what columns you need. I need a table. I'll call it as integer. The data type should be integer and the value name should be, the column name should be user ID. Then I need second column as title of the post. And I need it to be string. I need another string. I'll call it as the content. Very basic stuff. You can create a lot of things inside this, like published at, is this draft status, right? Is premium subscription required to read this post? So a lot of field. As per your requirement, you can create all the columns. You have the data types. Based on this, it will create the column table columns inside your database. So save this, go back to the database, check. Do you have this table? No. I'll refresh it again to show no. So I have to run it again. I have to run my migration command again. PHP artisan migrate. So it will check, okay, all these migrations are already run. I have to only run the post, right? So it has created the table. Refresh all again and see the post table is created. User ID, title, content. I hope everyone is good. So now I want to submit. I want to create a new record, right? I want to create a new record. I want to create a new record in this post table. I want to create a new record in this post table. So how are we going to do that? First thing, I need a user. Only a user can go and create the post, correct? So for this, I need to save the record inside the user table first. Go back to your form, resources, views, sign up. So I want to give an action here. Action equals to this, method equals to post, right? And at the rate CSRF. Now, Laravel maintains the security of your project as well. So whenever you are submitting a form, right, there are various ways of injecting the data into your database. So Laravel will check whether this form was created from the same application or not. So for that, it adds a CSRF token. So when you are submitting the form, if the CSRF token is not added, right, Laravel will not recognize this form and will immediately expire the request. It will immediately expire the request. Response can be 419. Right, I'll show you. Let's move this. So I want to submit the action. Where should the action go? Again, we need a route for this. And I'll give a name to it as register dot submit. I gave a name, but this route is actually not created. So go back to the web.php and create the route as well. So here we'll say route. The method we have selected is post because you have to submit the data. So I'll call it as a register only or sign up. That is fine. Okay, it is fine. You can keep two same endpoints, but with the different method, right? So here we are going to now give a name, register dot submit. I'll confirm it from here, register dot submit. Yes. So let's give the name of the controller. Controller colon class, and the method name is submit register. Knowingly, I have written a different name, a different way of name. Register.submit and submit register. Remember, these both things are not dependent. You can write a different name for your method inside the controller. You can write a different name for your route. Okay. So route post sign up, submit register, register.submit, everything is good. And now let's do it further. So what should we do here? Submit register. So I'll go to the controller now. App HTTP controllers controller.php. We will write the method to submit the registration form, public function submit register, and PHP code to create the user in database. Right. You have to use the PHP code to create the user in database. I have a quick question over here. How many of you have used PHP to create a record inside the database? And if you have created ever, you may be recognizing this code. I'll show you, not this one actually. So it will be like MySQL underscore connect, MySQL underscore select underscore DB, MySQL underscore query, right? MySQL underscore result. So I hope if anyone has worked on core PHP would have used these methods, MySQL underscore connect. Give me a quick yes, no. Everyone is, if anyone is aware, not everyone, I'll say, anyone is aware of this. So now, if anyone is aware of this, they would be remembering that they have to write at least 8 to 10 lines of code to create the connection, select the database, query, write the query, and then check the result. Right? We will not do any of these things here. Simple. I'll not do any of these things here. It is going to be very, very, very simple. So when I'm going to submit the register, right? When I'm going to submit the register, the request will bring the data. So all of you would have used dollar underscore request get method, right? Get or post method to get the data. These were the server variables, the global variables. So using these global variables, you used to get the data from the request. But here we are going to create a request object. So when the request is coming, this is the part of request. Right, this one, illuminate HTTP, right? Only this one you have to select. Here it is. So submit register, a request will come, an object would be created, and I'll get the data from this object. So how to now save this data? So if you want the email from the request, you have to say request. If it is a post request, I can call it as post, or simply I can call it as input. So input, fetch my email. Okay. Similarly, I'll get the name and I'll get the password. Okay, I got all the three things. How to send this stuff in the database? How to send this stuff into the database? Okay, let's open the readme.md model. Read and write data from the database. So now I'll use a model. I want to create a user, right? My table name was user. So Laravel provides you a default model also. App models, and here is the user model. Okay, so this user model is going to create the data inside the database. Which table? Users table, right? The table is always in the plural form of your model. If it is user model, database table name should be users, right? So let's close this. Now, how to send this data into the database? So I'm going to say create a new user model object. Create a new object for your model, any model. So when I'm going to work on the post, I'll create the post model, right? So whenever you are using something which is out of the namespace, so you have to, one second, remove this user. I need to use it from app models. We are using the namespaces. App models user is being used. Okay. So the user object is created. Now I need to pass the data to the attributes. So I'll say, okay, user email is having the email submitted. Then user name, I'll map it with the value submitted by in the request. I'll map the user password with the password submitted in the request. So you create the object, you populate the object attributes, right? And then you save it. Simple. And you return up a message, right? Return up a message. User created successfully. Okay. User created successfully. Remember this, we are not doing 100% Laravel today because like you cannot complete Laravel in 4 hours. We need 4 hours for the introduction only. But I'm showing you a lot of things, right, which can be handy for you. So the right way to return the message and all is not possible to discuss today. So name, email, password, and user is going to save this. So once user save is called, right, the data inside the model object will be persisted to the database. Now you will say that how user is going to know that what record is to be sent into which column. So we are mapping it through the field value and the attribute name. So user model when looks at the table, it will look at its column as its attribute. So user model will see in that table that, okay, user table is having a email column, a name column, and a password column. So immediately the model will register those columns as a attribute with itself, right? So now I save this and I'm going to submit my form. But remember, first refresh this and let's check the source. So here you see you have the form action. There is no token related to the form. So when I'm going to submit this form, it will give me an error. 419, 419, right? So let's go back to the sign up blade. So what should we include over here? CSRF. Refresh this page, check the source, a token is being added. So now Laravel will be knowing that, okay, this token is my token. So this is a valid form. This is not like made any injection and all. So I'll register some data. So I'll say Swindle @test.com name and then password. So you don't see the password, right? Because we have used the password field. But I have actually written it as 1 to 6. So click on register, user created successfully. Go back to the database, refresh the database and check whether the user is created or not. So we go to the users table and can you see the data? So data is there, name, email and password. But password is not encrypted. Password is not encrypted, which is bad thing. We should encrypt the password. So how are you going to encrypt the password? Right? Either you write up a big algorithm or you can use the existing ones. So Laravel provides you certain helper methods for this. Let's go back to our controller. Instead of passing the password directly to the attribute, you can encrypt it. So you can call a function bcrypt. It uses hash to encrypt this. So this bcrypt function will encrypt the password. Let's go back, create up a new record. Where is my browser? Here it is. Go back. Don't refresh it through this one. Whenever there is a post form, don't refresh it. Always open a new form by entering the URL or just hitting an enter in the address bar. Let's call it as jaswinder2@test.com. Name jaswinder2, password again 123456. Register. User created successfully. Right? And go back to the database, refresh your table. Can you see this? Simple. Do we need to write a connection for the MySQL? No. Do we need to write up like insert into statement and all for the database? No. Do I need to check the results? No, nothing. Everything is done by Eloquent Library Laravel. Is this good? Yes, Justin, correct. This is set as a primary key auto increment. Bring up your questions. Like, see, Justin has asked a question. Is this set as a primary key? Yes. ID is set as a primary key auto increment. So you can refine this code more. For example, if I don't have to use this email name password separately, I can simply go and write this here instead of fetching it from the variable, right? So I can do it this also. I have kept it easier for quick understanding. Yes, Justin, we can handle it using the try catch block. You can mention the SQL exception, and if SQL gives you an error, you can handle it. You can return your page. So you can use a try catch block for that. Just a basic outline I'll give. Use try, use a catch, exception, use a SQL. Okay, I'll check the class for that, or we can use an exception. $E. So if any exception is raised, you can check the instance, what this exception is for, and you can show it on your page. You can push it to session, clean up the session after showing the error message. Great. Okay, so what's next? Now we need to go for the post. Right. So it's been like 2 hours. We had the session. Anyone looks for some break? Does Laravel have some common verification method like email verification and text verification? Yes, it do have. So here you can use Laravel request, validate, and you can put the validation. Right. So here you can put the name or email. So I want to validate that the email field should be actually a required field and it should be a email, right? So if suppose you are going to enter anything as which is not an email, so it will immediately throw error and it will return the page back to the first page. I mean the form. Okay, so I'll show you this. 1 second. Let's go back, remove it, and I just simply run this message. Okay, so you see it is redirecting back. Fine, and even your data is lost. So what you can do is you can write up a method over here, sign up. Okay, we'll go to the view. Here, I'll just add for one value equals to old email. Okay, let's quickly test this old email. So I'm going to load this page again, add some message, email name, and some password. Register. So can you see? It is redirecting back, and since the old data method was called, it is capturing the old data. The repopulation is done, and looking at this, you can find that okay, my email was having some error. And we can also write some validation code. Validation. We can grab that validation message and can show it over here. Okay, that if it is having an error, it can show the error messages also. Right. Okay, it will not deviate from the topics, else it is going to take a lot of time. We'll miss something. At least we'll complete up one good thing. We'll do up submission of the related data also. So everyone is clear up till this point. Any questions, any doubts? Eric, I hope I have responded to your query. Is Laravel have some common verification method? Yes, it is the validate we have seen. And if there is a validation failure, it will redirect back to the form page. So you have a lot of validation. You can test for email, you can write your regex, right? A lot of things. There are more methods. Even you don't have to write this much of the code. You can keep your controller clean. You can create up a separate request, right? Laravel gives you a lot of things. With this table in the database, we need a post model also, right? So to create the post model, you can use PHP artisan make model command and give the name of the model. So previously we discussed, if your table is post table, the plural form of post, model are always going to be single, right? So post. So we have created a post model, and if you go to the VS Code app models table, you can find the post model, right? Now, what are things you have to add over here? First thing, what table do you want to use? Even if you don't define this, it will immediately recognize that this post model has to interact with the post table, but I prefer adding it over here, protected $table equals post, right? Plural form. Second, we are going to use the protected $fillable. Now, what exactly is this fillable? Fillable means that suppose if I am passing up the fields to the post model instead of writing up like as an attribute, how we have done over here. If you see, we have passed the value one by one to the attribute, right? But we can also do a mass assignment. So we can pass the email name and the password as an array to the user object, simply call a create method. All right. So that is called as a mass assignment. For any field that you want to do a mass assignment should be added to the fillables. So for this, I need the title and the content to be added inside the user, sorry, not user, title and content. Okay, protected fillable, title and the content. And now my post model is ready to be created inside the database. So we have to go and create the UI for that. So for UI, resources, views, post, create. So let's create it over here. So HTML5, and I'll give a title, create post. Let's create a post here. Form action. Action will be, we need an endpoint where we will submit this post also. So I'll say route post dot save. Okay, and method equals to post method. Use the CSRF token, and I'll take the title of the post. Input type equals to text. Name is equal to title. And post content. What is the content of the blog post? So I'll use a text area for that. Text area, name equals content. So we can keep few rows. Okay, and I need a submit button. So let's add a big tag here as well. So input type equals submit, value create post. Right, so our form is ready. And if we go back to the browser, we can check this form. So I'll go to check it for the post/create. Okay, so it is giving me some error. It is saying that route post.save is not defined because we have referred a route here. Right, whenever you're calling the route method, Laravel will quickly check whether this route is existing or not. If it is not, it will throw an error. So we will create a route with this name. Go to the route web.php. So you have a post create also, and I need one for where I'm going to submit the data, right? So route post. I need to give the controller. So I'll say controller colon class and post store or post save method and given a name. Right. So we have a endpoint where I'm going to submit this data. So that will be in calling the controller method post save. So let's go to the controller. Public function post save. Okay. So now what you have to do in the post save? You have to fetch the data. Okay, you have to fetch the data and then you have to create a post. Right, you have to create a post. So when we have to create anything, we have to create a new object. Right. So $post equals new post and then $post title equals to $request input title. Okay. And similarly, I need to save the content. And one more thing we require over here is we'll include the post also. Added it up here. Okay. So one more thing we have to do over here is that we need to save the user ID. $post user underscore ID is equal to $request user ID. Now the problem here is how will I know that which user has logged in, right? Which user has logged in. So a user ID field is also required. So user can only be fetched if the user has logged in, right? So he will enter his username and the password, and then only we can get this information. So something we require is a login route. So we have the register, we have the login now. So I'll go for another post route. We'll call it as, let's say, login controller colon class login method, and I'll give the name also as login only. Right. So we will access this route in the browser and log into our application. After logging in, I can create the post. After logging in, I can create the post. Okay. So let's save this. Go to the controller, create a login method. I have this submit method for registration. After this, I'll create one public function login. Okay, so in the login also you will get the username and the password, right? And here we are going to log in it. So you accept the credentials, or I'll say $email is equal to request input email, password equals to request input password. I'll make a credential of them. Credentials equal to this, email, password. So we got the credentials, right? Now we need to log in this. We need to log in this so that user can uh, do some authorized actions. So here I'll call an auth facade, right? So here I'll say auth attempt. I'm saying auth Laravel to attempt for the login. using the email and the password. If you want, you can remove this, or this is like I have used some plugins that generate some text. I mean, this code. So I can remove this and pass the credentials. So you can pass the columns through which it needs to log in, right? Through which it needs to verify. This is good. So now attempt will check if the user has entered the valid credentials or not. If the valid credentials are there, it will return true, else it will return a false. This will create a session. If the attempt is successful, it will actually create a session. All right. So let's go back here. We will check if so here we are going to do oops, not here, sorry. If path credential attempt. So if this is true, right? If this is true, then everything is good. It will log in it. It will create a session. But if it is not good, if it is false, so what are we going to do? We are going to return redirect route login. Okay, so it will redirect to the login route. Let's go back to the web.php. So we have a post and we also need a login for get. So this route, the first route will show the login form. Okay. Submit the login form for login attempt. Okay, so I need a show login form. Okay, so I need a show login form. Route get login. So I need a show login form also. Let's go to the public function show login, and here we are going to return a view. I'll call it as login view, right? So now when the user comes on your website, he clicks on the login. So login will take him to this page, right? So I need a login form. So views, create new view, login.blade.php, and I actually need two fields, password field and the email field. I'll copy the same form inside a login.blade. Will change few things. So here I am going to submit the route to the login, and I need an email. So this is fine. We don't need a name inside the login. We need the password and submit. So here I'll change the text on the button. It will be login. Okay, so this looks good. So now I'll go to the login and I'll enter my details. So once the user enters the detail, it will submit it to this function, to the login function, right? Right. So once it submits over here, we have to identify whether the user is valid or not. Whether the user is valid or not. So once everything is good, it will return. If everything is good, it will return redirect route, and I want to redirect him to the list of the post. List of the post. Yes, excuse. So now I'm going to redirect him to the list of the post after login. So let's quickly test this. We will go back to the browser right here. Okay, so this was my create post form. Let's quickly check login. This is the get request. I'm going to submit from here. What was the second email I have registered? Just in the 2. So I'll use this email. I'll enter the same password and submit it. So you can see it is showing me a list of the post, right? But if I copy this URL, and open it in a private window, all right, if I open it in a private window, still you will see it is getting open. It is not redirecting me to the login, right? It is not redirecting me to the login. So what should we do? We need to tell the Laravel app that this is a restricted URL, right? This is a restricted URL. Not everyone can see this. So we can go to the web.php, right? We can go to the web.php and we can add a middleware on this, right? On this, we can add a middleware that create and list should be behind the authentication. So I'll say middleware auth. Similarly, on the create also, middleware auth, and the post saving also. So the form can be also seen, the creation form can only be seen by the authenticated users. Okay, right. So all these three are now behind the authentication. The user can only see it if he has logged in. So let's go back. There can be some error. We will uh, fix it at the real time, right? So I'm not running any predefined code. I'm actually doing a live coding. So always there can be errors, and that is always good because you will learn the new errors and what kind of errors it can appear. So let's refresh this. Okay, can you see now what happened here just? So if I go to the post create, I'll show you in the tools, go to the network tab and localhost post create. So this is the route I will request. Let's open the network tab, request. So let's see what happened here. I made a request for the create. So it got an error 302 because we are calling the redirect if the authentication is not done, right? And that is what happened over here. So now see, you don't have to write a if else condition if the user is authenticated or not authenticated. So Laravel is providing you a middleware which will intercept the request and check if the user is authenticated or not. So all the endpoints which you want to be behind the authentication, you can add a middleware auth for them, right? So after this now, what I need to do, I need to log in. It has redirected to the login page. So now you log in and then your session is ready. So let's do this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 login. And now you can see list of the posts is appearing. So now this is authenticated, right? Let's go and call the create method. I have this create post endpoint. I want to create the post, correct? Now I need to create this post and I want that the user ID should also go inside the post table. So I can recognize that this post was written by so and so user. So let's go to the controller here. Now how to fetch the authenticated user? How to fetch the authenticated user? Request $request user. So you are calling a user method on the request. This will return you the authenticated user from the session. And then I can use this user ID to be added to the post. Post user underscore ID is equal to user ID. And from here we'll return redirect route. Which route should I go? To the list of the post, and its name is post.list. Okay, so we have returned the redirection. So if everything is good, oops, I missed something. Post save. So we created the post. We have created the post, right? We have created a post and then redirected to the list of the post. So once user creates a post, he'll be redirected to the list of the post and he can see what posts he have created. Okay, so save this. Everything looks good. And let's try to create a post now. I'll refresh this once. Demo post title and lorem generator. I generate some lorem text. Okay, let's put it over here. Create post. We got some error. What is the error? The error is data too long for the column content at row 1. So what was the problem? The problem is that the table post you have used is a string, having the string column, and the maximum length of the string is 255. Okay, so since you have used the content, a larger content, so this should be in the form of text and not the string. String has a limitation of 255 characters only. Text does not have any limitation, so you can use and save as big content you want, right? So now I have to go back and recreate my database. So one option is you go to the database client, drop the table from there, run your migration. Don't do that way. So there is a command. Let me clear this screen first. Very interesting thing, PHP artisan migrate colon status. You can check this last command was in the second batch. All right. So if I do a rollback, so it will only roll back one batch at a time. So if I roll back it now, it will drop 4 tables. I have only run it once, right? So only one batch will be rolled back, and now I'll roll back. I'll run the migration again. New table is created. So the structure is now changed. Save this and go back, refresh this. So list of the post. Let's go to the database. Post, and here you can see the post is being created, and we also record the user ID, which user has actually created this post, right? And now I want the user to see his post on this page, all the posts. So we will write up some tabular format. Let's go back. Okay, before going to the list of the posts, anyone has any question how we have created this post? It is very similar to how we created the user. The only difference is the use case. Earlier we created a user, now we have created a post. So posts have been created and I want to see these posts. So that means we have to fetch it back from the database. So whenever this route is being called, we need to fetch the data from the database, right? So how is this route traveling? The route is coming to the post list here. From this point, it is going to the controller. Open the controller. So inside this controller, here is your list post. So that means from here, I have to send some data. I have to make a view and send it inside the post.index. So the first thing you have to do is fetch all the posts that belong to the user, logged in user, right? So we have to fetch the logged in user. And for that, we need the request object. Okay. So $user equals to auth user. So we'll get the logged in user. Second, I have to fetch only the post of this user. So first of all, let's say I want to fetch all posts. Post all. This will return me all the posts. Okay. So when you are doing a all, it will return all the posts, and you can pass the post. You can pass the post as a data to the controller method, right? Post. Now don't get confused over here. Does it need to be the same name? No. You can write up any. So the post from here will go as a p variable into the view here. Okay, so let's write a table. HTML, I'll call it as my posts for each. If I write it this way, this is HTML, right? So we have to use the blade syntax at the rate for each and at the rate and for each. Okay, because in the blade you are writing HTML. So if you have to write some PHP in this, you have to use the blade syntax, or you have to open the PHP tag, which will be like very complex. So don't do these things. Don't write your PHP tag over here. Okay. So what should we do at this point? We should use the blade syntax for each. And here the post will come to me as a $p variable. And I'm going to say that every out of this collection, it will return me a collection, right? Collection of objects. So now instead of writing up a lot of query to fetch the data, make the PHP objects, right? Allocant is giving me the PHP objects. So here I can form a table. So let's write a table. And I'll go for heading. I'll use th name th. Sorry, it's not name. There would be title and description. So th description. Okay. And then one more column we can say, let's say created at. So when was this post created? Right, title, description, created at. You can have a lot of columns like views, likes, comments, number of comments, right? But we are not going at that low level structure. It's like a very high level structure, title, description, and created at. So now in this case, I have to create a new record. And here I'll say TD. And first I have to show the title. So $post title. Okay. Now if you do this thing, it is a text. It will be only a text. Let me show you. See, it's showing it as a text. You have to use the directives so that when you are writing up double quotations, it will run as a PHP code. Now refresh this. Can you see the title? Let's give a number also here. Hash. Okay, so now it is showing post number 1, the title, and then description. I want to see the description also. $post. It's not actual description, it's the content column and created underscore at. Whenever you are creating up a migration, it will add one column created at. Now, how and why it is creating something very descriptive. So you can, it also populates it, and then we can fetch the data from that column created at. Let's go and refresh this. See the title, description, created at. You can use some string functions to truncate this string to like very less value. Okay, like 100 characters only to be displayed. Then here is your title. This here is your like a number. You can format this dates, etc. So let's go and add one more record. It will complete the flow. So post title to some other demo post being added, create post. You can see now the complete flow. User registers, logins, see the list of the page, list of the post, create a new post, again sees the list of the post. So I hope everyone is good up till here. You are creating the post and then you are accepting like who first you are fetching who is the user, then you are creating the post, right? And then you are saving it. Suppose there were like 20 fields, you would have to write those 20 fields, right? There is a way you can use the mass assignment and you can use the relationship, right? I'm going to do a shortcut over here. Where is my sign up? Submit register, this place. I'm going to reduce the amount of code here. You want to see? Let's comment this. I don't need this. Comment it. Okay. I don't need this as well. I don't need this as well. Instead of that, I'm going to write dollar payload equals dollar request only name and email. Okay. So I have got the name and email. So this will only method returns an array of the payload, which will contain only the name and email. And then I am saying this payload is pushed with a password value, which is here. Okay, and copy this, put it here. Okay, so now you are preparing the payload. Payload is ready. Payload is ready. Once the payload is ready, I am going to call user model create method and pass the payload to it. This is the mass assignment. I am saying that user model, I'm giving you the payload, map the fields with the payload. So user model is going to look that, okay, is this payload containing a name? Okay, it will internally set it like this. Is it containing an email? Yes, it will internally set it like this. Does it contain a password? It will internally set it on the user model. So I don't have to create a new object and set all those things. Right? If you are using frameworks, use it with the style of framework. Don't use it how you are doing it in the core PHP, right? The motive of showing this code was that how efficient Laravel is. First, I displayed you like you can do this thing. Sometimes you might have to do this thing, no problem. It is fine. But you can also do this shortcut. User create payload and the user is created successfully. Let's save this. See, I have only written 3 lines of code and let's register up a new user. I'll close the incognito, open it again. Right. So localhost 8000, register, put the email jaswinder3@test.com. Jaswinder3, password is 123456 and register. See, the registration is done with only 3 lines of code. The user is created. I'll show you. Refresh all, go to the users table, refresh and see the record is created. Simple and easy. Everyone tell me, is this easier than what we have done earlier? Is this good and efficient? If everyone says a quick yes, I'm going to show you another magic. Okay, time for another tip and trick. Fine. So when you are creating this post, right? When you are creating this post and you are fetching this post, the first point is like it is fetching all the posts. It is not fetching only for the user, but we have to only fetch for the user. So this is one thing we will fix. Second is when you are creating the post, you want to do the same thing, right? So one option is you say, okay, dollar payload equals dollar request. Only from the request, I'll fetch the title, the content, and I can do dollar payload user underscore ID is equal to dollar user ID. So I can do this thing, and I can say post colon create dollar user, right? I can do this thing. But in this case, I have to ensure that all the fields are added in the fillables. The fields that you want to, okay, where have I missed it? Okay, here. So I have to ensure that all the fields that I'm passing as an array in the create method should be inside the fillables, else it will give a mass assignment error. So I have added all those fields, and I will go and try to see the run it and see whether the post is created or not. Okay, so I'll go back, and one more thing we'll do over here. Instead of all, we will write a query now that where the column name user underscore ID is equal to the user ID who has logged in, and get only his method. If I don't do this, in that case, it will fetch all the user records. It is also going to fetch just win the 2 records. Let's see it. Okay, so let's go and log in first. So I'll log in at just win the 3. Just win the 3 at the rate test.com. Password, login, and see. Jaswinder 3 has not yet created any records, any post. Why it is showing for him? So what can we do? We can use this user ID and get. So you pass the user ID that only fetch me the post whose user ID is equal to the ID of the user, and get me those records. Refresh it, and you can see it is blank. No records found. No records found. I can put a check over here to give a better message. If dollar post is not available, if it is returning a null value, if it is returning a null value, or if it is returning a null value, or the collection which is returned, its count is 0, right? If its count is also 0, then in that case we will return a message no post created, right? No post created. Let's go and refresh this. And it's just semicolon, it might have given me an error. See, it will say no post created. So let's go and write one post. So I'm going to create one post, demo post for user 3, demo post, create post. Okay, we got some error, and it says argument 1 attribute must be of the type array app model user given. Okay, so go back here. Oops, see, I have made a mistake here. I need to pass the payload. Got some error. By mistake, I passed the user object. Maybe the copy paste didn't run well. So post create the payload. Right. So now what is the magic here then? We have created the post also in the same way using fillables how we have created the user. So that is very same. What is the new magic over here? But let's run this first and see if everything is working. And then we'll come back to the new thing. So yes, it is working. So post also has become short code, very short, isn't it? Now I want to make it more smaller. I don't want to do this much of work. I don't want to write 5 lines of code. I want to make it more small. So here you can fetch the user from the request, right? And then tell this user that since the post belong to the user, post belong to the user, right? You can create one dollar request uh, only, and that is title and content. That's all. One line of code is going to create it. Okay, I'm missing some error. Okay, yeah, single code. Don't write this much of code. Single line code. Request user post create. So now why? What is this post? We have not created any method like post. We are going to create it. So since I'm telling that okay, user, you have the post and create one new post inside this. So I'm going to the user model, and I'm going to create a relationship that how both tables, both models are going to relate. So I'll say public function post. Okay, return dollar this belongs to. Here I have to tell that okay, the users table belongs, sorry, the post table belongs to the user, and user has many posts. My bad, it should be many, has many. So user has many posts, and here I'm going to give the name of the post class. Now you may think of that how Laravel is going to recognize that which post belongs to the user. We have kept a column user ID inside the post table. So based on this column, it is going to recognize that both of these posts belong to the user ID 2 and user ID 3. Okay. So now I don't need to write a lot of query. If I want to fetch all the posts of the user, come back to the controller, list post. Here, I don't have to write this, right? I can simply go and write $user post. So this is going to, don't put parentheses. When you are writing parentheses, it will not be a collection. It will become a builder to run the query, right? So we have wrote the post, only post. So this attribute, this property will actually fetch all the posts of the user. You don't have to mention any user ID because actual user object is fetching his post, right? User has many posts. So the post will be fetched if it is null or 0, no post created, else it will show the post. Let's refresh this listing page. Works good. Now come back to the creation here. So again, I'm doing, see, somewhere I have used auth user, somewhere I have used request user. It is fine. They both are fetching, doing the same work. So this will fetch me the user, will pick up its builder, post builder, and create the title and the content. Save this. Go back and let's create a new post. I'll refresh this. Post with a relationship for new user content. This is a demo post for new user. Create post. Can you see? The post is created. The post is created and everything looks clean, clear, and very efficient. What's next? What should we do next? We have created the data into the database and retrieved it back. It looks good. What should else we do? Right, let me look at this. Okay, now suppose you are making a mobile app, right? A mobile app. So in the case of mobile app, you do not return the view. View is only for the like web part. If you have to return a page. So how to return the data for a mobile app? If you have to work on a project which is a mobile app, you're building a backend. So mobile app developer will say that okay, I don't want your page. I cannot get the data from it. I have my designs. So you return me only the data part. You need to return me only the data. So how are you going to do that? Fine. So in this case, we are going to return the JSON form. JSON form, right? Now suppose the same application is also need to be returned for the same application also needs to be returned for the APIs, for the APIs. So in this case, we are going to write the endpoints which will return the data, right? Endpoints which will return the data. Let me write up one and show it to you. We'll do a login endpoint, right? So here I'm going to write a HTTP. First of all, go to the routes. There you can see there is a API.php, right? API.php. Now for the authentication, we have used a library called as Sanctum. For authentication, we have used the library Sanctum. So it is generating the session, and when we are going to work on the APIs, it is actually going to generate the tokens, right, and authenticate them. So let's go and write a route. We don't need a get route for login because we are not going to show the web page. Okay, so we only need the post. I'll say, okay, if the user logins, now I need a different controller for this. So I'm going to write it as a API controller. API controller. Okay, I'll call it as a API controller. We'll change the name here. API controller. I don't need a sign up page because in APIs you don't have to show the web pages. Then you need a submit register. Okay, I'll remove all the stuff here. We'll rewrite it. So the first method I need is public function store or register user. Public function login user. Public function my post and public function create post. Okay, so these are few methods I have written, and I want to return the data in the JSON form. So whenever a user is registered, I want to return the data in the JSON form. So when the user is registered, I'll get the request. Let's accept it. Oops, eliminate HTTP request. Client request. I don't want this client request. Let's remove this. Request $request. Fine. So I'm going to get the data from the request. So I'll say validated request validate, and I have to validate that whenever a user is registering, he needs to return the email. I mean, he needs to submit the email. So this is a required field. It should be an email. It should not be a existing email. So I'll say it should be unique in the users table email column. Right. And then I need to have a name. Excuse me, a bit of bad throat. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so required. Then I need the length. It is a string. So I need minimum at least 3 characters and maximum 64 characters of the length. So now you see I have created up a validation on the request. I have created a validation on the request. If validation is good, we will create our user. So I'll say user colon create dollar email. Similarly, my password is also required. Password is of minimum 6 characters and it should be string. You can add regex and all other stuff. So user create, and we want to create this user. So I'm going to pass dollar request and do it the same way we have done in controller method. I'll copy it. Right. Over here, we pass the dollar payload. Let's go and run this thing. So request validate payload and user is created. I'll return a dollar user. Create method actually returns the created object. Okay, save this. Register user. So how to call this register user? How to test it? Right. You cannot go to your front-end developer and you say that, okay, I have created this endpoint. Can you write the functionality and test this? No. You have to first test it yourself. You have to first test it yourself and then provide it to the developer, to the front-end developer. Got it? First, you will write it, the functionality yourself, and then provide it to the front-end developer. So to test the API, you can use the API clients. Okay, to test the API, we can test it using the API clients. So here, Postman is an API client. Postman is an API client. APIs are stateless. They will never have any REST API is stateless. They will not have any sessions. Okay, so they are going to be managed by token. Every time you make a request, you will have to send a bearer token. So here, let's register it first. So I'll make a new request. I'll say my request is running on HTTP localhost 8000/API is the prefix, and then register. Okay, so I have to go to the API file, create a register endpoint, and add API controller colon class. Let me check what is the name I have given. It's register user. I'll keep it over here. So route post register API controller is the class where I have to send it, and register user is the method where I want the execution to go. Right. So I hope this is clear. And one question comes over here: do I need to give the name of the route? No. You don't have to call these routes from internally from your application. So no need to give the route names for the API routes, right? So you don't have to give the route name for the API route. And whenever you are calling the API route in the Postman or any other client, ensure that you add a API as a prefix between your endpoint and the base URL, right? So let's go and run this. Okay, when I'm running this, I'm getting some error, method not allowed, right? So the front-end developer needs to take care of this and show the actual message. And if it is a 405, they cannot show it as like a success. Okay, so we need to give some information to them and also correct this. Let's do a post send. So I'm getting a web page over here. Can you see? I'm getting a web page. I was expecting a JSON. So you have to tell the application that you are actually going to accept only the application JSON format. Don't send me the web page. So send, and here now you can see the front end will get this response. 422, a validation error. Messages email field is required and two more errors. What are the errors? Email name and password field are required. That means I have to send some form data in email. Jaswinder3 @test.com. Then name Jaswinder, password 123456. Okay. Now if I'm going to submit this, I will get one more error. See, email has already been taken. Email has already been taken and there is a small space after password. So only one error is there. Email has already been taken. So which validation has executed? The unique validation. So let's go back. Right, let's change it. 4. So you can see the record is created and I want to log into this account and I want to get a token so that I can go and create my post. So for the login user, again, we will validate the request that it should contain an email and the email should exist. Name and password is, name is not required. First validate email, password, okay, and so we'll check if the user is not authenticated. Auth attempt. We have the email and the password. Don't convert your password into the hash. That work will be done by the auth facade. So I'll return response JSON. So I'm saying I'm calling the response method and a JSON method. JSON method will accept an array of key and values. So I'm going to give a message invalid credentials, right? And I'm going to return a status code 400 that is an invalid credential. So now I have to return the user. If the user is logged in, I have to return the user or the token. So I'll return the token from here. So let's go for response JSON. Token status will be 200. So we have to generate the token, right? So now to generate this token, we'll go for the auth user. Wait, we'll follow the documentation for this. Let's go to the security authentication and stateless HTTP authentication. Wait, what version is this? Okay, this is 10 version. I need to check the 9 version. Here in the 9th version. Here is the Laravel sanctum which we are using, issuing API tokens. Right. So I need to have the create token method. We will implement it. Okay, so here we are calling the create token method. Where it is actually calling it up. 1 second. All right, so auth user token, create token, and we'll pass some name, a random name to this token, right? So this, and then we are going to return the token would be created, and then the token plain text would be passed here. Let's remove this. Okay, so in the login, we are validating the data. We are fetching the payload. We are trying to attempt with the payload. If the user is not like having the correct credentials, he would be returned a message invalid credentials. Else, if not, then we are going to create the token and return the token. I have a doubt I'll get some error on this. It's actually showing it, but let's check it, no problem. So we'll go back to the Postman. We'll create a new tab, and it is a post request to login. So http:// and localhost colon 8000/API/login. Let's quick check the API file. Have we created the login? No, we have not. So I'll do that. Login API controller. And what is the method name we have given? Login user. Save this. Okay, we got some error, and that error is again the not showing correctly. So here we are going to add the headers, except so that my response should always be in the application JSON format. 1. So it will ask for the validation, so email and the password. So we have to update the email and the password here. Let's go to the body form data, email, the 4@test.com, and password. Password, I think we have entered 126 only. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right, that's working good. So here we got the token. Right. So now your API for the login and register is working. What we need to do is we need to use this token to create the post. Right. As Jaswinder 4, if I want to create the post, so I have to pass this token, else it will give me error. Right. And I'll show you. So let's go back here. I have the middleware route and post. Here we are going to do a post API controller. Let's check what is the name we have done for create post. Right, but we need to add a middleware on this so that unauthorized, unauthenticated, right? Unauthenticated. There is a difference between authorization and authentication, right? So auth middleware is actually going to check for the authentication, that unauthenticated user who have not created the token should not be accessed, should not be, should not access this route. I cannot access this route. So here middleware auth sanctum is added, predefined. You don't have to write anything. So this is going to check on the basis of token. So let's go and try to create a post. First, we will try it without the token and then with the token. I have not added any code for this. Let's add it here. Create post, request, dollar request. So I'm going to say dollar request, user, post, create, dollar request, all. Okay. So this will create the post. And once it creates the post, we can return a success message. On response JSON post created successfully. Okay, so request user post created successfully, done. Post method and headers. So accept value should be application JSON. It is saying unauthenticated. Why it is saying unauthenticated? Because we have not passed the token, right? So let's pass the token authorization. It is a bearer token. The token that is generated from the login request will be kept inside the application, and whenever mobile app or the front end app is going to request to the backend API which is behind authentication, if token is not passed, it will throw 401, and if token is passed, it will return the data. But here I'm still getting the error. Headers has been passed, authorization bearer. Wow, let me check this API post. Okay, give me a second. Let me check why it is actually giving the unauthenticated still authorization bearer token we have given. To authorization, nothing is there. Okay, give me a second. Let me check something. Or to member function post or null. So user was not identified. That is correct. So this is correct. We have added API tokens. Let me check documentation if something is missing. Middleware we have given. From the request, I'm fetching the user. Is it a typo error? I have already added B error. Let me check it. Oh, that's a typo. Thank you. Correct, correct. So now, since I have not added the validation, thank you, Go, Ajay, Emil. It was actually a typo error only. So let's add the body also, form data, add the title, um, title for the post for API demo, and description. One more thing I'll show you. If you are using Postman, you can use the defined variables for generating some random text. So random words. I don't have to write up a lot of random like text like this. I can simply use those variables. It will generate the dummy text. So next, field content doesn't have a default value, so it's not description. It's actually content. So please add validations. We have already seen how to add the validations. So post is created successfully, and if we go to the database, the post would be there. Title for the post for API demo. If you want to return it back, so go back to the API. So here I'll use a get method. I'll fetch the post, and my method is my post. Add it over here. So write the code. I'm going to say return dollar post. So dollar request user. I'll use the relationship to get the post. So let me duplicate this, duplicate tab, change the get method. I don't need body anymore. Run this. It is going to fetch the record for the user number 4, which we have just created few minutes back. That's all from my side. Let's have the questions from your side now. So the relationship you have to define is using the methods. Yes, ML, we have the token time. I'll come to it. So Sal, for the post, wait, for the post, you will have many, for the user, you will have many posts. Right? Try to relate it this way. One user can have many posts. Right? Now let's relate one more thing. Suppose you have the comments for the post. So you want to fetch all the comments on the post. You can write it this way: public function comments, and here you are going to return $this as many comment colon class. Though we do not have the class, I'm just writing it for an example. Okay, so this way it is going to relate both the post and the comments. And remember, this will only work if your convention is correct. If your convention of the database is correct. If I have used something here as user's ID or user number ID, then might be the relationship will not work. In that case, you have to mention up that, okay, it is related to the user underscore ID. You have to write the column name here in that case, the foreign key and the primary key. Got it? So in case if your database is not following the naming convention of Laravel, then you have to specify the column name. That what are the column names through which we can map the post and the user. Welcome. Emil, yes, the tokens have the expiry time. Tokens have the expiry time. So either you can refresh the token. If you go to the config auth folder, you can find the details here. Right? Number of the minute, expiry time, it is 60 seconds. Go to the sanctum. For the sanctum library, you might find it here. So here we have expiration is null. So you can mention it up. Okay.